Welcome to another episode here at Real Wealth Podcast. This is Mike Proctor hosting Leading Edge Financial Planning as a sponsor, and we have a special guest today. His name is Mark Olsey. He is a counselor. He has written a book. He actually has a brother who's also been on the podcast. They have the same counseling degree, and they've used it in different ways. Yep. But I've had the pleasure of actually doing a marriage retreat with Mr. Mark Olsey, and it's been great. I've loved getting to know him, hearing about Pledge Talk, which we're going to talk about today. It's a system that he's developed of communication. And what's been really great about that is it's a formula that anybody can learn. It's even got an acronym with it. And it's a way of communicating that is universal, where you can seek to understand. And that's a lot of why I was bringing him on. I was like, hey, I think this is a great tool. He's here in Wichita, so for the Wichita crowd, or maybe even beyond, if you're thinking of doing either a marriage retreat for a group, organization, or you just want to reach out and see what might be available or what options might be, Mark would certainly be available for that.
Love to.
Well, Mark, is there anything I missed on your resume that you'd like to share about?
Oh, I don't know. I appreciate everything you did say, Michael, and I would maybe throw in a couple thoughts there that strike me even immediately is that I'm not quite sure I thought about this, but I would love to be, I'd love to find, you often talk about the idea of ideal client, right?
Okay.
And I would love to even find even a business or corporation who would say, hey, we want to do a favor for our employees. Mm-hmm. And if they could better the relationships that they have in their marriage and their family and so forth, then we can bring Mark in and have him do a retreat for our employees. I mean, I think that'd be way cool. Just an extra little thought. But we'll talk more about things like that.
Right. You mean you and I, or on the podcast?
Well, either one. Either one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I can say it was really great to just have that, have the group that we did have together. That was a lot of fun. And I know that it helped both of us be able to pull out of, like, zoom back out and say, okay, like, what are we doing here? Is it time to pause? Is it time to or do we need to reframe how we need to seek to understand?
Sure.
Right. Mark. So, Mark, would you like to talk about the book, the Pledge Talk, how you arrived where you're at right now?
Sure. So I have been in the field of counseling for quite a number of years, 30 plus years. And the last probably almost 20 years, I've specifically been doing marriage counseling. Some family, some individual, but 95% of the time has been with couples. And that means they come into my office, and I am really often, like, rather quickly even, in the midst of conflict. Mm-hmm. They're even explaining to me why they're there, and they're disagreeing with each other. And or they start a discussion, and really a conflict just begins to take place right in front of me, and I'm watching it, and I see that hour after hour after hour. I've literally watched I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of conflicts unfold in front of me. And then I watch to see what they do, and I see that they miss these cues, miss these opportunities. Mm-hmm. When if they went one direction, the conversation would go in a good direction, a healthy and a helpful direction. But instead, they, more often than not, they miss that moment. And they go another direction, and that direction usually is a reactive, a defensive direction, or they miss something the other person has said that if they were listening well, they would have heard something that was really important and essential, again, to help the conversation go in a good direction, but they missed it. So I'm watching this happen over and over again, and over time I'm noting the consistent errors, and with that and out of that, developed a process. You called it a tool earlier, and I know a lot of people think of it that way. I tend to think of it more as a process, even more so as an understanding about how to relate well to each other. In fact, Mike, you might remember when we were at the marriage retreat that we did and so forth, talked about the idea that ultimately I'm not even teaching people how to resolve conflict as much as I'm teaching them how to honor each other, respect each other, and love well in the way they communicate.
Right.
With the idea that if they understand that, using the Pledge Talk principles, if they learn those well and use them and put them into practice just on a regular, daily, every conversation basis, if it's a couple, they're going to deepen their love. If it's a friendship, it's going to deepen the friendship. If they're peers in a workplace, it's going to enhance that ability to work well together. So if you're doing it with your neighbor, it's going to help give for a better neighboring experience. So in any kind of a situation, if you learn the principles well and employ them and use them as a part of your everyday conversation, you're ultimately going to, yes, honor each other, respect each other, love each other well. And if a conflict arises, the chances go way up that you'll be able to resolve it. Because of the intention and the way that you go about doing it, the reason for it, the motive, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've seen that when we're able to use it in when conflict arises or, misunderstanding creeps in or barrels in.
Yes, sometimes it does that too. Sure.
Yeah, it's like, maybe we should take a minute and then come back to talk about this in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we get to go through and seek to understand each other. And yeah, it's actually work to have to work through conflicts, huh?
It does take work. In my mind, it's the best kind of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fantastic work.
And I would say if you don't do Pledge Talk work, it's going to take a ton of other work in the relationship and in just your existence in the marriage or in the workplace of working around the subject area, working around the person, avoiding the person. It's going to cause so many more challenges by not really addressing it well. And so it's work, again, but it's the best kind of work.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, let's focus in on a married couple. A lot of the folks we work with are married. And, when it comes to money and marriage, that's usually a flashing point. You've got two, separate people who have their own ways of dealing with learned behavior, feelings, upbringing, reactions, kind of like deep down in there, survival techniques when it comes to life and or money, which is kind of the working out of that. I guess where I'm getting to is, actually, where was I going? I do that sometimes. I get so deep in the thought, and I'm like, where's the top of that thought starting?
Sure. Well,
anyways,
I could jump in and say that in the area of the area of finances is probably one of the top areas where couples have conflict.
Yeah, right. So how helpful is it to use Pledge Talk and to communicate, to understand when you got two parties that really, we all have our own levels of unawareness about ourselves.
Sure.
We've got our blind spots.
Sure.
Is maybe the everyday way to reference that. And so how do you see this as a thing that people can use as they're having talks about money or anything, but why not money while we're here?
Sure. It has a little bit to do with what your occupation and so forth.
Right. To understand how they engage around finances better.
So I think even the last phrase you said there is that we have to understand better about the other person and their thoughts or ideas. And I think that whenever we're in conflict, again, it could be with a spouse, it could be the child, it could be you and I, between you and I, the conflict, okay? I believe we don't take near the time or the effort to really understand the other person, where they're coming from, why they think the way they do or feel the way they do, where they develop those ideas, right? You for instance, grew up in your own world with your own influences, your own, your parents and family and so forth. And it was taught to you, whether you straight out sitting down and putting up on a chalkboard growing up as your family, you wouldn't, right. Or just really just more caught about your thoughts and beliefs about finances. Well, I had the same experience, not the same experience as you, but I had my own experience, I should say. And you bring two people together, and their experience is different. So it's so helpful to sit back and say, where did you learn that? What's behind that? What are your thoughts behind that? And doing that, even that alone, can really go a long way to preparing us for a good, strong, healthy conversation, and a helpful conversation to get us moving in the right direction.
Sure, absolutely. Here's what I think a lot of people are surprised to learn, and I'll just say it.
Yeah,
it's hard to do financial planning without help. So we actually use Lyndon to help us go through our financial planning, even though I'm a financial planner. With I don't know what over a decade of being a CFP and Baker's dozen years of industry experience.
Sure.
I still want the help because it's such a tough area of conflict. Now, I'm not saying we can't get there with the pledge talk, but like money just like it's another level.
It ramps things up kind of.
It
Is
does.
that what you're saying?
Yeah. But I think part of it is it's helpful to have the insight from someone else to help facilitate it. And so maybe that's the equivalent in the money world of a counselor, like not that I think this is breaking down, but what I'm trying to say is the going through finances, it's really helpful to have a third party with it because there's something about it that is, there's so many different ways of interacting with money, and we've got a survey that it's got 10 different domains of how people interact with money. And if you see money very differently, you're probably going to need additional help. And it's kind of like in a marriage. Even with Pledge Talk, it's helpful to have a therapist or a counselor or somebody you can sit down with that's objective to help you inspect things. Yeah. So, I guess I don't know why I jumped to speaking to the counseling side of things, but I don't know. Money's tough. Money and communication stuff.
Again, it is hard. There's a number of difficult areas, obviously, right, in life that can cause conflict, but definitely money, again, is way up there statistically. Research-wise shows that as a source of conflict. There's a lot at stake. If you're going to spend our money a certain way, and it's not how I want to spend it. I mean, just that alone can cause some real frustration in the relationship. And so we've got to be able to sit down and talk that through in a healthy way. I wonder if it'd be helpful, Michael, for you or your audience to maybe get a little bit of an overview of Pledge itself.
Let's do it.
The process.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So, and we could say, like, let's say you and I are in a conflict.
Oh, okay. Ooh, what are we fighting about?
Well, we could be fighting about several things. I could be fighting about, I could say, man, I had terrible directions to get over here, which is why I was 15 minutes late today. Oh. And I could be frustrated at you, right? Or you could be frustrated at me saying, Mark, why didn't you call me and figure out a little ahead of time and do a little better planning, and we could all of a sudden be in a conflict over something like that, right? We'll just pretend that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So we could do that, right? And what I would suggest is the moment either one of us has a sense that, man, there's some frustration here, or finger pointing. Yeah, there's a tone involved, right? We all know what that's like. There's a finger pointing experience, a tone, frustration. We all hear that. We sense that. We know that. And we know at that moment, it's not comfortable. We're in a conflict. Sometimes people think that conflict is when you're fighting, screaming, yelling, and that's certainly a conflict. But I would like to suggest that it's important to note, even when we're experiencing at a very small level conflict, right? So we could then begin to use the process of pledge, and pledge is an acronym: pause, listen, echo, disarm, give, and engage. 6 steps. First being pause. So that if you and I noticed a tone that one of us might say, whoa, hang on a second. Can we just stop a second, right? Let's just pause a moment, right? And the reason we do that is so our emotions don't get real high. Because research shows if our emotions get real high, the rational part of our brain shuts down. So if you're not in a conflict and it's growing, we're not going to be thinking straight, and we're going to likely say or do things that are going to be damaging to our relationship.
Like, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I was trying to pretend.
Yeah,
Mark, I'm so upset. Oh man.
Yeah,
What happened?
Yeah. So, and I could just say, well, look, you're the one that sent me an invitation without an address on it. I could say that, right, and fire back at you.
Did I really?
I don't know. I'm just throwing that up.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, my point is, again, we can be reactive like that and start a conflict.
I figured you were probably hunting around the Main Street side of the building if I didn't put the thing in. Maybe I'm messing up the fight. Okay. So, yeah, I'm angry.
Yeah.
Go.
So I might then say, okay, so let's just hold on a second, hit the pause button, right?
All right.
And then I might say to you, okay, I'm going to move to the second step, which is the step of listening, because if there's a conflict, it would be helpful to be able to figure out what's going on. And we both can't talk at the same time, right? That doesn't work really well. I've seen a lot of people try that. Doesn't work really well. So I might say, okay, Michael, I know I can hear the tone and there's some frustration. Tell me what's going on. And I move myself into the second step, which is to listen. So I might say, man, tell me what's going on. You sound frustrated at me. Help me know why.
Well, Mark, I'm upset because I got important stuff to do and important places to be, and my time's really valuable, man. Very upset, very upset. You just got to Google it, right? That's all you got to do? All you got to do is Google it?
Yeah.
See, now I'm being condescending. That's not nice.
But that's okay. I mean, not okay, but I mean, I can be reactive to that right now. I could say, I did Google it, man. It took me the wrong place, right? I could be reactive like that, and which I did. Honestly, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
But right now, I could go that direction, which is going to take us off the track again.
Right.
Or I could say, I could actually move to the third step, which is echo. Pause, listen, and then echo. And I can echo back what you're saying. I could say, yeah, so you're frustrated. I mean, your time is valuable, and you only have so much time. And here I am 15 minutes late and wasting your time. And, man, that's frustrating. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if I were frustrated, maybe I would say, we'll play along. Yeah. Yes, you heard me.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now by echoing back, I've heard you. I think I'm actually checking in to make sure I've heard you. And you confirmed that I heard you. And then you also found out that, in fact, I did hear you by my echoing back.
Yeah.
And that's actually important because we're sharing something with someone and they're going, okay, sure. Yeah. And in our heads, we're saying, are they really getting it? Are they really listening to us? Are they really hearing me? And the only way we can really show that is by echoing back. Okay? That's the third step. Pause, listen, echo.
So the only way we can be sure of that is by echoing back.
Yeah, exactly, just like that. Good echo. Good. The fourth step then is this, and it's disarming the tension between us by validating what you've said.
Yeah. So if I were to Google and it said show up where we used to have an office 6 years ago, and I wouldn't know that, I'd show up there and it'd be like, how do I get in this place? It was kind of hard to get in there in the first place when we were over there too. So yeah, I could see how I would feel a little bewildered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're validating me actually in that moment. That's cool. I could also be validating of you by saying, I can appreciate the idea that, yeah, you have only so much time and I'm 15 minutes late. And that's frustrating. I mean, honestly, that does make sense to me. And I can validate your thoughts and perspective as well.
And now I'm concerned about, how is that address still out there somehow? I thought I changed everything. I don't know. I got to figure that one out.
You do. That's another whole issue. But
that's a whole other issue.
It's a good thing we had that thing happen, so you find that out. Yeah. So, yeah. So we're down to pause, listen, echo, and disarm by validating. Mm-hmm. And typically what I say is, again, we paused, you and I, because we recognize there's a conflict, okay? Then I volunteer first to listen. And usually if I volunteer first to listen, then I also volunteer to echo and disarm, because those three kind of go together. Mm-hmm. I listen, echo back to make sure I've got it, and then I disarm by validating your thoughts. I disarm the tension between us by validating your thoughts. Yeah. So I'm listening to you. I go back and say, oh, that makes sense. I can hear what you're saying. You're saying this and this and this. And then I go to disarm and I say, that makes sense. And at that moment, the tension drops off between us. There's no more felt need to keep arguing on your end now, because you feel like I've heard you.
Right. Oh, he does see from my perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. So then I get quiet, because what I could do, and what we often do, and I want to encourage you not to do this with your wife tonight when you go home and there's a conflict with her. I'm just saying.
I mean,
or
there
tomorrow.
Might be one. Who knows?
Who knows? Don't listen, echo, and validate her thoughts, and then follow it up with a, but let me tell you what's really going on. Don't follow it up with the but word. We've all done that. We've all butted and been butters, or we've been butted, and we've people who butt others as well. We don't want to do that. Because if I were to say to you, okay, man, I can understand what you're saying, wasting your time, yada, 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 but I was given the wrong place through Google, and then all of a sudden, the validating that I just did was like I invalidated it, right? So I can only echo back and validate and then get quiet, at least for a few moments. Mm-hmm. Makes sense, man. Makes sense. I can see why that's frustrating. Yeah, your time is valuable, and I missed it, man. I apologize. I can see it. It makes sense.
By the way, I'm like never that. That's not.
I don't. This is a make believe conflict.
Come up with a thing.
But still, we're using it. We're using it to
clarify that, because I'm like, man, I got all these people like thinking I'm maybe ticked off at it.
That's good.
Like, no, that's not the deal.
And let me tell you, I'll look here in the camera. Let me tell you, he was not upset when I got here. Clearly not in any way at all. So we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is it could have happened, or it will happen with someone else sometime.
Yeah.
Some conflict is my point.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And then I say, hey, or wait, no.
So pause, listen, echo, and then disarm by validating you. And then I get quiet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the next letter is G. Mm-hmm. And if you have...
So that's give.
Yeah. Word forgive, or the letter forgive.
Yep. And
go ahead. Do you remember it from what we taught?
Yeah. Do you have anything else to share, or do you have any other? Or no. I'm the give.
Yeah.
That's right. So I say, can I offer something? See, it's been too long, and I missed the follow-up retreat. We were in Nashville.
Yes. You're right. Okay. Yeah. So no, what you do is at that point is, so I've been listening to you.
Yeah.
Echoing back your thoughts.
Right. And
validating your thoughts.
Yep. You were echoing me, and then. That's right. Anyways.
Yeah.
And then I don't ask you then I ask you if you have anything else to offer. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Because see, the thing is,
then I give you a chance to speak up.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
That's right.
That's it. No, you got it. Good job. Because as I'm listening, right, and echoing back, there's a part of it in my head is going like, but I'm having my own thoughts. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, if I interject them right then, and then you interject your thoughts right back, and I interject my thoughts, we're going to be escalating right then and there. So the only thing I can do is put my thoughts on the side until we're at this point, as after I've validated yours. then I can give you my thoughts, or even ask if I can give you my thoughts about what went down or what happened. And then when I give you my perspective, then you go back to listening, echoing, and validating my thoughts as well, or disarming the tension, any further tension, by validating my thoughts too. And we engage around and around like that to resolve the conflict and to better understand each other.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you would say, by the way, I actually went to where it said on the map, and that's where it said. And and then we can, oh wow. And then we can flip it if need be, or I can say, oh, well, that's a problem. Let's fix it.
Sure.
Conflict over.
Sure. Yeah. Because, and what happens if we're doing this, well, we often are learning in the process about each other, of each other's thoughts, each other's feelings, and even extra ideals like what the Google map is still saying. So all that can take place.
That's amazing. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Right. So pledge.
PLEDGE. Pause, listen, echo, disarm, give, and engage.
Yeah. So you're a much better teacher than I am a student. I think that's what we're learning here. It takes work.
It does take work, but learning often is an experience of processing and reprocessing, right? You've heard me teach this once, and it was a good time, but it's been a while. So here we are teaching it again, and that's
Couple
okay.
months.
Yeah.
Free follow-up session.
There we go.
So you just start a podcast and have Mark on. You get a free follow-up session.
That's great. That's great. You have me on. Love to talk.
Yeah.
Share this.
Awesome. How have you seen this pledge talk work, whether in your own life or with people that are close to you?
Sure. So I'll tell you an interesting story. It's probably been 5 years now. My son at the time is in graduate school in Florida International University. He's studying to be a history professor. And one day I'm in my office and he calls me up and says, Dad. I say, what's up, Micah? Good to talk to you. And he says, yeah. And he says, Dad, I've been thinking. I said, what have you been thinking about? And he said, well, you guys, as you know, Mom and Dad weren't able to help us out a whole lot financially with school and grad school. And I said, oh, Mike, I'm sorry. We weren't able to do that. And he said, no, Dad, that's not why I'm calling. I said, oh, okay, well, why are you calling? He said, again, you guys haven't been able to help us out financially a whole lot. But Dad, I've been thinking, you actually, on the other hand, you have saved us, I figure, somewhere around $250,000 because you taught us social capital. I was like, what? You know, that's a big number one, for me at least. And second of all, I thought, like, social capital, I don't even know what he means by that. But he's in graduate school, so he's got all these terms and so forth. So I said, well, tell me more. What do you mean? He said, Dad, because you and Mom taught all three of us kids about how to relate well to others, how to communicate in the most helpful and healthy manner, how to look at people in the eyes when we're talking, how to use good facial expressions and posture and smile and listen well and engage in helpful ways and in enriching ways with others. Because you've taught us all well how to do that, all three of us kids were able to walk into the college and graduate committee meetings when they're determining who they want a scholarship for their schools, and sit down with 6-8 people in a room and engage with them and with the greatest confidence that we could probably get the top scholarships because we know how to relate well to people. And all of us did that.
Wow. We
walked away with very little college debt, or most of it paid, to the tune of, he said, I've been figuring to the tune of somewhere around $250,000.
Cool.
I was like, whoa, I couldn't even, I was in tears and couldn't believe that he even thought about that, let alone, called me up to tell me about that and so forth. But then I was so grateful and thankful and then so excited about again, wanting to teach people how to teach their children. Because what a wonderful set of skills and abilities that affects their life for the rest of their lives, to be able to have great relationships and communicate well with others. What a great skill set, if you will.
Absolutely. Let alone the, I guess the word is relational capital. Yeah, the richness of the relationships they're developing throughout life. There's no replacement for that.
No, there isn't. There isn't. I mentioned earlier, just before we got on here, that there's nothing more important in life than relationships. And I think the older we get, the more we realize that.
Yeah.
At least that's my experience.
And yeah, again, that's part of why I wanted to have you on, is because when we can communicate and relate well to others, and we can engage the people that we're friends with, family, hopefully as well. That's what is important. I mean, that's what really counts, is the relationships that you have. Once you get above subsistence level living, like you have a roof over your head, you got food on the table, you got the basics covered, but relationships, we were talking about before we started the camera, if you don't know what a deep relationship is, you don't know what you're missing out on. What are your thoughts on what that looks like?
Yeah, well, my first reaction again, even now as you say that again, is just sadness. Because, wow, there's no one I'd rather hang out with than my wife of 41 years. She's my best friend. And there's no one I'd rather hang out with than her, number one. And then there's no one I'd rather hang out with than my 3 kids. And they're all in their 30s right now. And, man, I just love it every chance we get to be around them. We're going to see my son this weekend coming up. And he's in New York. We're going to fly together or some family time together in Michigan. And I can't wait to be with him. And the relationships, and it's because relationships are so rich. But my sadness is, I don't know how many people even know that, how rich relationships can be. And unfortunately, they're not that way. When I look around and watch people, the way they interact, or listen to people in my office, I think, how many people even know or have relationships that they would say are really good, really rich? Makes me sad. I don't think they do.
Yeah. So how would somebody go from having, whether it's a, so to speak, poor relationship, or just a really shallow relationship, to a deep relationship? What does it take?
Sure. That's a great question. And I'm glad you asked it, because it helps us go back to the Pledge Talk principles and the idea that, as I said earlier, the 6 steps, they're not so much a tool as they are a means by which to communicate and really enhance all communication. But it takes work, it takes time, it takes slowing down, and it takes thoughtfulness of other people. So you share something with me about your business, and I can ping off of that and say, oh, that's great, and I can start talking about mine, right? Or I can say, whoa, that's really cool. Tell me more. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And I keep my focus on you, my thoughts towards you and about your life, and I stay in a listening mode, inviting you to talk further and more about this or that, and I draw you out. There's a proverb that says the purposes of a person's heart are like deep waters, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Well, how often does that happen where someone just sits and says, man, tell me more about that. Tell me your life story, or how you came to that conclusion, and really takes the time to get to know another person. That's just one little way, using the principle of just listening can help deepen a relationship. Go back to pausing, right? how often does it happen? You're trying to tell something about your life or your business or a story, and someone interrupts you. They've got a question. They've got another idea. They've got a better story. And you don't even get to tell everything you want to tell. And all of a sudden, the depth, the potential depthness, even of the moment, is cut short. Because you don't even have the opportunity to go very deep. I could talk a lot more about this, but using the principles themselves and the understanding behind them, which is ultimately, again, to love another person well, and living those out helps to deepen the relationship as we get to know each other more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to love somebody else well if you don't know much about them. Right?
Yeah, wow. That's good. That's good.
So, yeah, I think this is such a great tool, and you've got a book. So your Pledge Talk book is set up that somebody could read it. Is it better as a support to a workshop? Because it might be hard to read it and then turn around and put it into exercise or put it into practice just off of reading it. What do you think?
I think both. I wrote the book. It's called The Pledge of a Lifetime. And they can find it on Amazon. Yeah. The Pledge of a Lifetime. I wrote it, I think it was about 7 years ago now, in the midst of what I was learning again, working with couples. I wrote it about a couple struggling in their marriage, and they go see a counselor, and he teaches them this process. And then you kind of, it's kind of like as a reader, you get to kind of sit like a mouse in the corner of the counseling as you're hearing the counselor teach them and the couples interacting and so forth. And then they go off and there's some story about what happens that week and the conflict that emerges and how they attempt to put the principles in action, and then they fail and they come back and learn. And so it's all about that. It's a story. I wrote the book in the form of a narrative. It's easier for a lot of us to sit down and read a book like that. But I think people can buy the book and learn a lot of all the principles, the pledge principles, and begin to put it into practice themselves just through reading it itself. You're about to say something. Say more.
Sure. It was really helpful to see the role play, and I know as much as I fumbled with the role play with us, it's probably helpful to at least see it play out at some point. So if someone can do a Pledge Talk work with you a weekend or workshop with you, I'd encourage them to figure that out. But I did read the book, and it was very helpful. Not to say that you can't do it. I'm just saying to see it play out and to have the coaching points, because there are some little stuff in there of like, don't fall for this. Like, don't do the butt. Don't butt somebody.
Sure. So it's a both and.
Yeah.
I think it's in and of itself. I think it is a great tool. This might sound a little funny, but there are times I go back and read my book or parts of it again, and I find myself thinking, wow, there's a lot here. On some level, it's a simple read because it's a simple story. I'm not a novelist. I'm a teacher of these processes and so forth. So it's a simple story, but it's chocked full. Every page is chocked full of ideas, nuances of how to put this into practice, and is extremely helpful in and of itself. Now, you could take the book itself and a small group study guide that I'm just about to finish putting together.
Oh, cool!
And you can use that with your just as a couple again. You could maybe your small group, if you go to a church somewhere and you're part of a small group, you could do it there. I had a business that I did some training for here in town, and the company bought these books for everyone on the team. And I'm going to go back and say, I got a small group study guide now, and they could use that if they wanted to develop it as a way to, again, refine their understanding and abilities to use the concepts by going it through in a kind of almost a workshop or training experience themselves. So it can be used in both settings, I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That is exciting to hear that you're not the limiting factor on group format with it. You got some sort of guide to help duplicate yourself.
Well, and along with that, we have videos that teach it and train as well. So you actually can use all three: the book, small group study guide, the video training as well. So
okay, where would one find that?
Go to pledgetalk.com. Not too hard. Pledgetalk.com for more information. You actually watch the video series themselves for free, just for your email, right? So you can get on our database, and once a week I send out a communication tip, a 1-minute video short that is a helpful nuance that will give you another nugget to take home and put into practice that night. So they get the videos, go to my website, pledgetalk.com. They can also, I think they also can buy the book there, or just go to Amazon. You go to, again, Amazon and get.
So are you guys doing the role play on the videos? I didn't actually watch the videos on there. I got the live version.
Yeah, no, on the videos, I'm not on that video series. I'm just doing a teaching and training of each of the steps. Now, my wife and I do have another series where we taught it together, and I may be offering that later this fall for a little fee or something like
Small
that too.
fee.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But that's great. It supports your business and what you're doing, and gets you out there and gets the information and the training to people that are looking for it. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. So, hey, go check out the free series on him.
Pledgetalk.com.
Yeah, pledgetalk.com for your email.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Mark, would you mind sharing maybe a piece of wisdom that you've picked up over the years in just your personal life? What was a really big learning moment for you that has shaped, whether it's your professional or personal dealings, or just something that transformed something inside of you?
Boy, my mind goes into several different directions. I don't know how much of your audience are people who have a faith or a belief in God. I do have a faith and a belief in God. And I had an experience a number of years ago where my wife and I were in a conflict. And there had been this, I think it was a way of interacting that was just hurtful and frustrating. And I remember talking about it with my wife on a number of occasions, and it happened again that night. She went to bed earlier than I did, and I laid there in bed that night, and I felt like God began interacting with me. And that's one of the cool things that for someone who is, again, I don't know if this is okay to even say this on your broadcast or whatever it is, but I've, like we have followers on Facebook, or people follow us. Well, I follow Jesus, you might say. And I felt like he began interacting with me. And that's one of the cool things I think about having a connection with God, is that I think he can interact with us. And he began interacting with me and basically said to me that none of us are going to be perfect or made perfect in this world, in this lifetime. And he basically said, what if the one area in your wife's life that is most frustrating to you is an area that doesn't get changed in this world? My response was, oh, no. That can't be the case. No, you've got to work on her, because that's what most couples do, or most all of us do, right? We see a problem and we're
have
finger
faith,
pointing.
Mark. Pray harder. Have faith.
Well, yeah. But what happens again is we point the finger at the other person. Right. There's a problem here, and it's your problem, and we do that. And it was like God was saying, maybe that problem. Maybe there's a bigger problem, right, on some level, because he's saying, what if I don't fix that in her in this lifetime? Then I said to him, then if that's the case, then you got to work on me. and change me to make me more patient, more caring, more understanding, and a better lover of my wife than I have been, because I've not been doing it really well. So it's like there was a big moment of change, and again, we can relate this. I'm talking a lot about it in marriage circles, but that's a lot of what I walk in, right? But as I branch out into working with businesses and organizations and so forth, all of this translates into other situations, right? We're in the workplace, and your coworker is frustrating you and so forth, and maybe, and you're finger pointing and saying, you need to change, or you need to do this, and maybe you need to do some inner work yourself so that you can change in ways that you need to change that will help you get along with the person who's sitting next to you, who doesn't have everything together in life, because after all, you don't either, and I don't either.
That's right.
And I want them to be patient with me. Maybe I need to learn to be more patient with them. So the principle, the life-changing moment that I had back then has been helpful in all of my relationships.
How silly would arguments look like if people were like, no, I've got the problems. I screwed up. Listen to me.
Yeah.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
How much more helpful if we all were quick, to own our own stuff.
Yeah. Back to blind spots. Sometimes it's just hard.
Yeah.
It just, we're not objective. When the eyes are pointed out, they're not pointed back at us. It's hard.
And it's hard, and it's easier for me to look at your blind spots, because I don't know, I think it feels more risky for me to vulnerably say, man, I think it was me.
Yeah.
For me to come over here literally and say, on some level, I was having internal conflict. Okay, when I was coming over here, because I knew I was getting later and later and later, right? So I was having internal conflict, and I realized it would be good for me to say, man, I think I didn't mess up. I didn't plan really well.
Yeah.
And my point is, to do that anytime, anywhere, it takes a bit of vulnerability, and I think that's harder for us to do. It's easier to point the finger at someone else.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I interrupted you on a podcast where you're talking about don't interrupt people. Like, you're like, yeah, you did. That's okay.
That's okay. I wasn't going to say anything. That's right. It's no big deal.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Totally
That's all
did.
right. That's cool that you caught it, though, and you're aware of that.
Well, I might even, there was an ADD moment a little bit. I can throw it on that kind of in a way, but.
Blame that.
But like, actually, I did think I had a great thought. I'm sure most people do when they go to interrupt somebody else, or they're like trying to run with an idea. But hey, well, whatever. We'll deal with it. That's life.
Well, actually, that's really interesting, because we often do have great thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? And we're afraid if we don't say it now, we're not going to remember it.
Right.
So I think that is often what causes us to interrupt. And a friend of mine once said, who has learned Pledge Talk really well, and I have great interactions with him, he once said to me, Mark, I would rather forget my great thought than miss an opportunity to love you well as my friend.
It's a good way of thinking about it.
That really struck me.
Yeah.
Because we think it was a great thought. I got to share it. No, I don't necessarily have to. And if I think it's that great, I could actually take a moment to write it down or something like that. Mm-hmm. But wow, at the risk of missing, really listening well, and giving my friend the experience of being listened so well that he feels like, man, he really matters to me. I don't want to miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
Just because I have a good idea I want to share.
Sure. Well, sorry I interrupted you. Now it's on record.
That's okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I understand. I've done the same.
You understand. You're like, well, there's another human.
Yeah,
right over there.
Exactly. Oh, man, I keep bumping the mic. Sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. All right. Yeah. What is, real quick, what does living the best life possible with the time Mark has left look like?
Yeah. That's good. I think I said earlier to you again that at 64 years of age now, I know that, man, I've tried. I've done some traveling. I've had some toys, you know. I've not a lot of money, but enough to be able to say, let's go out to eat, let's watch a movie, let's go do this, let's do this, without worrying about the budget, that kind of thing, you know, and so forth. And it's like, all that stuff it's nice, it's cool, it's good. But I'm aware that still what's most important is what I'm most thankful for is the relationship that I have with my wife, my kids, my neighbors even, some good friends. That's where I still get the most joy. And what I would say for even on a business level, or as you think about working with some of your clients, that, you know, we're all going to get to a place where we are looking at the end of our lives, and we're handing over batons in all kinds of ways, including if there's any investments, wealth, that kind of a thing, we hand it over. And my hope would be that in that process, the handing over goes really well, because everybody in the family loves each other well. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the family cares about each other well. And we all together have the ability to communicate about any matter that might arise in the handing over of those batons. So that transition is done as well as it can possibly done. And we finish up life well. Relationships intact, relationships stronger than ever. I can't imagine a better way to end the world in my life someday.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk. I've got a couple podcasts with Tim O'Sullivan talking about family harmony and how there's ways you can set up your estate and the legal documents to be able to foster that. And that's from the legal side of it. Yeah. But you can't undo years of family dysfunction or people not getting along. Wow. You can protect against some of the damage of it. But yeah, you know, so you can help, but there's no replacement for knowing how to just love your family, love your friends well.
Yeah. And I want to say, that's my passion, to help people learn how to do that. And using pledge, I come back to it because it affects every conversation. I tell people that I'm never not using the principles.
Right.
In all of my conversations. The entire time that we've been talking, I've been doing my best to look at you, to listen well, to not interrupt, and so forth. So I'm constantly aware of using the principles, and it always deepens conversations.
I don't see. I just interrupted you again, but I actually had done something pretty much the whole time. Do you know what it was?
Well, you've looked in my eyes really well, given me great eye contact, and I think you've really done quite well at listening to me. And head bobbing also.
I've been head bobbing for like an hour now. Yeah, I'm bobbing so hard. Yeah. You know, head bobbing. Oh yeah.
Right. That's what I taught.
If you ever talked with Mark, he likes it when you head bob.
Yeah, it helps people to know that they're really listening. Absolutely. Yeah, but seriously, you've been doing that well too. All of it. No, you've been engaging wonderfully. Thank you, Michael.
Well, thanks, Mark. Despite some interruptions.
None of us do it perfectly. We're always learning.
Yeah, we got to have grace, but we got to take responsibility too.
Yeah.
So, cool. Mark, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and you know, doing a treasure map hunt to get here, and sharing just what you've spent your life working on, your professional career, your paying close attention to people.
Yeah.
And really seeking to understand. I hope that this is something that, you know, listeners are able to go to your website, check out the videos, buy the book, hopefully join a workshop, or maybe start their own group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Again, my plan is to have the small group study guide up on Amazon next to my book as well, so that they could do that again with their church, with their family, or again any kind of small group, friendship group. My daughter in Tulsa has a number of friends that they get together regularly with, and would use something like this as well. So yeah, or in a business setting. Yeah.
Right. Well, with that, I am going to go ahead and we'll wrap it up. This has been Mark Olsey with Pledge Talk here on Real Wealth Podcast. Your host, Mike Proctor, sponsored by Leading Edge Financial Planning, where our goal, I don't know why.
Try it again.
I gotta do these in the morning. I'm like, seriously. Anyways.
Before you try it again,
Yeah.
ask me one more question that you might throw in the mix here somewhere.
Okay.
Well, ask me the question be like, so Mark, what would be your ideal client, so to speak, or
Okay.
where would you love to teach and take this the greatest?
Before I do that, let me shoot a text to the gentleman that's in the lobby
Okay.
that I will be right there with him.
Okay. Yeah, it'll take just a minute.
Yeah, since this is going to get edited out anyways. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay. All right, I texted him. Okay. Back to before I mess things up. Mark, so what would be your ideal client to work with?
Another great question. Thanks, Michael. I think two ideas come to mind. What I'm looking for is opportunities to share this, and I love doing this in any kind of a setting, even on a podcast, right? Or in a church, I do teaching there, or again for a business. Again, I mentioned a couple opportunities where I'm taking leadership teams of businesses through this kind of a thing. But what I'm looking for most would be a business, an organization, a church who gets how important communication is. I mean, they really get it. It's key to the entire organization, and being able to resolve conflict is also key. Recognizing that conflict is going to happen, so let's don't try to shy away from it or be afraid of it, but let's almost be ready for it, right? So an organization, a business organization, a church, whatever, says, we know it's going to happen. Let's bring Mark in and let's do some teaching and training in Pledge Talk, in these principles and more, to help us prepare for it and actually shift the culture in the entire organization. What if an entire business, from top down, they all knew the principles. They all understood how to communicate in a strong, healthy, respectful, loving way. What if everyone knew that? And so anytime we're conversing, we're using the principles. Anytime there's a conflict that it comes up, even in the smallest of way, one or the other is saying, hey, let's stop a minute, let's pause a minute, and let's be sure we're talking through this in a healthy way. What if everybody in the organization or business or church operated like that? My idea is it'd be huge. It'd be a no-brainer about how helpful and important that would be, and how significant it would be to the organization, even from the standpoint of just morale, right? making a great work environment where people would want to work there, and people would not want to quit because they're experiencing such really good, helpful, and healthy relationships. I think it'd be huge. So that's the type of business organization troops I'm especially looking for to work with.
Awesome. Well, we will put your website, your book, all that in the show notes. We'll hyperlink it.
Cool.
So people, if they're listening to it or they see it on YouTube, they can go straight to it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Michael, thank you so much. It's been great being a part of your the conversation here today. Thank you.
Hey, it's been my pleasure, my honor to have you on. And so we'll go and wrap it up. This has been Mark Olsey with Pledge Talk. You can get his book from the link in the show notes. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get the free videos that you can get for just trading your email address.
Yeah, at pledgetalk.com.
At pledgetalk.com. This has been Real Wealth Podcast. Mike Proctor is your host, sponsored by Leading Edge Financial Planning, where we help people make wise financial decisions.